Hey everyone!
Hi guys!
Hello, Dr. Syra.
Hi Jenna. Welcome to Today's Your Day.
To give anxiety the boot.
boot.
Yes, we are done with anxiety.
We're so
sick
done.
of it.
We're done. So last week we were in separate rooms, separate houses.
Yes.
Because of illness. So we're happy to be back side by side talking to you about anxiety, which is not the most fun subject, but a really important one.
Yeah. It could be fun. It's fun when you realize that you have a little bit of control over the anxiety that you feel. That's fun. Work with me here.
It's fun when you don't have any anxiety at all.
That's fun too.
That's fun. Well, but it's true. It's fun. It's I don't know, fun, but it's hopeful when you feel like, oh, okay, I could do something about this. I'm not a victim to my anxiety.
I would call that just flat out fun. I'm sticking to it.
Can you tell we're therapists? We're like, doing your work? That's fun. That feels good. The normal people are like, no, that doesn't sound like fun. That sounds like work.
Emotions? Ooh,
no emotions.
Well, although I'm like that too. I hate emotions. Stay away, emotions. Cyrus helping me. Oh, man.
A therapist that hates emotions. Awesome.
Can't help it.
So, when I went through my training program, we had to do 1 year what they call on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually had to get our own counseling done to us. We had to go through that process. And part of that is to get comfortable with emotion, right? Mm-hmm. Because emotion, I was saying this to you before, emotion can't kill you. It can't.
It feels like it can in the time, though. Like, sometimes you can really feel like, oh my gosh,
like you're dying.
I'm going to die. Right. Or, like, I would rather die than feel this. Like, it can be very
overwhelming.
Consuming.
Right. And there's really cool techniques about going into the feelings and actually moving through, because a lot of the feelings that we feel are surface emotions and they're covering something else. And if you go deep enough and deep enough and deep enough, there's only really two emotions: love and fear.
Yes.
That's it. Everything else is an offshoot of one of those two emotions.
And that's why we're talking about anxiety today, because it's very closely linked to fear, because obviously fear produces anxiety when you feel like there's nothing you can do about the situation.
It makes you worried.
It makes you worried. It makes you scared.
Yeah.
It makes you just feel plain old bad, uneasy.
Restless.
Yeah.
Irritable.
Yeah, irritable. Oh, man. Yeah. So true.
So we were talking in our Facebook Live about this kind of scale, right? There's kind of this spectrum of anxiety. So you have, on the one end, you have, that low level kind of annoying, irritating, fearful thoughts. Mm-hmm. And then on the other end is like kind of this full blown panic attack.
Yeah.
And so most of us will be somewhere on that spectrum at different periods in our life. And there may be times where you're much more worried and much more fearful. There may be times that you're less worried. I know that, I think about my pregnancies. And the first pregnancy, I had a lot of worry and a lot of fear, like every little ache and pain. I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I was reading books. And the second pregnancy, not at all, because I felt like I kind of knew what to expect and I knew how it was going to be. So I wasn't as anxious or fearful. It was much easier. The symptoms were a little bit different. The delivery was definitely different, but I didn't have that internal kind of anxiety about what was going on with my body.
So there's like situational anxiety, which when you're pregnant, obviously that's a very new thing, especially if it's your first time. Mm-hmm. And that can bring on anxiety. And then there's that anxiety that people can experience every day. Like, imagine waking up and feeling uneasy every single day.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
You feel like there's nothing you can do about it. You feel like totally stumped, like there's something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I know I was talking on the Facebook Live about I feel a lot of anxiety before social situations, before doing live things, before workshops, like any kind of public speaking event. And even just like hanging out with friends. Like, it's funny. I don't like hugging people when I hang out with friends because I'm like, my body produces so much heat. I'm just like hot to the touch because there's just so much energy, right? And I don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. So I can talk myself down, but my physiological responses oftentimes are still the same. Right. So when I'm public speaking, I don't know if I'm going to get a swollen tongue and I won't be able to say what I want to say next, right? Yeah, just stuff like that.
Does that happen?
It does.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, it's a real thing. And I shake, right?
So with public speaking, that's a great example because it's one of my public speaking teachers taught us about the physiology of excitement. Right? Mm-hmm. And the physiology of excitement, that arousal state that we're in, is the exact same physiology as fear.
Yeah.
So what happens in the body when you're fearful or when you're excited, it feels the same. It's just what the brain interprets it to be. Is it excitement that I'm feeling or is it fear? And when I'm about to speak, every single time, and I've spoken in a lot of places all the time, every time right before I go up, there's this like pounding, whoom, 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 and my mind gets a little furry and my eyes get a little glazed, and I have this thing that happens every time. And at first it was really overwhelming, and I'd like finish my talk and I'd go like throw up in the bathroom. It was really bad. And then I learned about this physiology thing. And so now what I've done is when I feel that heart pounding, I say, thank you. Because I feel like that's my inspiration. That's my like energy. That's my excitement coming through. That's going to make me a better performer.
Yeah.
Right. So it's part of it is physiological. Part of it is also how are you interpreting these sensations in your body?
Yeah. So you could literally just tell yourself next time you feel nervous or anxious, you can tell yourself, this is excitement. I feel excited. And then you'll notice, like, if you just say that to yourself, suddenly you'll think of all these things to be excited about in the situation. Like, oh, I'm going to meet new people. I'm going to get to, talk about things that I'm passionate about. I'm going to, whatever, right? But things come up just because of the way you're interpreting it. That's such a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you are kind of in the midst of that, for example, so for those of our viewers who actually experience panic attacks and who experience anxiety attacks, we would strongly recommend you actually talk to your doctor about that, because there is help available. There is different sorts of interventions that can really help you out in the short term and the long term. Admitting it to a friend or a family member just helps you kind of move through, so you don't have to sit around being stuck with this situation.
Yes.
And not everybody needs medication. No. That's not the answer for everybody. Some people that's really helpful for. But talk to your doctor, talk to a professional to kind of get the supports that you need.
And we were also saying that sometimes just identifying that feeling as anxiety can be super beneficial, because a lot of times you can feel it and not know what it is and just think like there's something wrong with me, I'm going crazy. But when you can recognize that it's anxiety and that these are the situations that bring it about, then you have something to work with, right? Because then you can say to yourself, okay, I know that if I'm going to go into this situation, I'm going to start to feel anxious. So a week before or 2 weeks before, you can start now. 5 or 10 minutes a day, you can just tell yourself, I'm going to be okay. Like, it's not a big deal. I will be fine. I'm strong enough to handle this. If the worst case scenario happens, this is how I'll get through it. Different things like that. You talk about the worst case scenario a lot, right, with your clients? Right.
So the worst case scenario, so I often lead my clients through the worst case scenario exercise, right, where you say, what's the worst that could happen? And there's this great story. There's this woman who we were talking about how her daughter was not doing her homework after school. So her daughter was like in grade 9. She wasn't doing her homework after school. So we did a worst case scenario story about that. So what if she doesn't do her homework? Well, if she doesn't do her homework, she's going to fail in school. So what if she fails in school? Well, if she fails in grade 9, she's not going to make it to grade 10. So what if she fails in grade 10? Well, if she doesn't make it to grade 10, then she's going to drop out of high school. So what if she drops out of high school? Well, then she's going to end up working at McDonald's. So what if she works at McDonald's? Well, then she's going to meet some like loser guy at McDonald's, and then she's going to get pregnant. So what if she gets pregnant? Well, then she's going to be a single mom on welfare, all because she didn't do her homework.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like,
our minds will go there in a heartbeat.
And we go there and we're not even aware that that's what we're thinking. And so when she kind of walked it through, right, it was this, and I kept saying, so what if this? So what if this? And then she would say the next thing and the next thing. And then at the end of it, she's like, so she's going to be like a single mother on welfare. Like that was her worst case scenario. Yeah. And she just got there from the, and the funny part is the client herself was a single mom on welfare. So it's not like that was that bad of a thing, because she was living that experience, but she wanted a different trajectory for her daughter, and she thought her not doing homework was going to lead to the same outcome, which would be a difficult life from her perspective. Yeah. So it's so funny how if you do that worst case scenario exercise, you can start to see that actually my worst case scenario is either not really realistic or it's actually really not that bad.
Yeah, and no matter what it is, I can handle it.
I can handle it.
Yeah, like if it comes to that point, I will handle it because I'm strong enough for that.
Right.
And a lot of times I think that's where anxiety comes in, is because we feel that we're not strong enough to handle whatever's going to happen next. Because maybe we've had experiences with that particular emotion or that particular situation in the past, and we're scared that it's going to keep occurring or it's going to happen once more and we're not going to be able to handle it again. Right. But the truth is, if you've been through something, the next time around, you will handle it because you will be strong enough.
Your muscle makes you stronger, right?
Exactly. So having been through something actually almost prevents it from happening again, because you'll see the signs, you'll know what to do. You're not going to be as stuck as you were the first time.
And if you are, it's because you haven't learned your lesson, people. So I put that on you. Like, they say, my mom used to say to us, first time funny, second time silly, third time spanking. Oh. Not that I endorse spanking. Please don't spank your children. I'm sad that I was spanked. However, That was the rule. Like, if you don't learn it the first time, you have another chance. If you don't learn it the second time, the third time, there's going to be a consequence.
Well, it's like that whole do it to me once, shame on you, do it to me twice, shame on me or something.
Right.
So, yeah.
So my mom gave me 3 chances, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice, 3
Twice,
times.
3 times. Like, if you haven't learned your lesson, if you haven't actually said, oh, this sort of a scenario highly provokes my anxiety. And sometimes you might have to say, you know what, at this point in my life, I'm going to choose not to engage in this type of activity. That's allowed. You're allowed to say, you know what, I'm not going to go to baseball games because there's too many people and it provokes my anxiety. That's allowed, right?
Yeah, it's allowed, but you also have to see how much it's affecting your life. So if you're not engaging in any type of situation where there's a lot of people, that can have a huge impact on your life, and you can end up just staying home and being highly anxious about every single situation, because it can become its own reward system. When you feel anxious and you allow yourself to get out of the situation that's causing your anxiety, you feel relieved, right? And that relief feels so good. So the next time you feel anxious, all you're going to want to do is get out of that situation again. And so the anxiety is going to build up more and more and more. And every time you get out of the situation, the relief is going to be more and more and more, right? So you're building your own reward system, which can be very, very debilitating.
And like we mentioned earlier, there's times where it is appropriate to seek professional help and to help you get through. So if you're finding you're at that space where it's become debilitating for you, your anxiety is really overwhelming, and it's not enough to just talk to a friend, it's not enough to do your journaling, it's not enough to do the techniques that you know how to do, go for a walk, then sure, reach out.
And if you notice that there's a particular situation that's making you feel anxious, but you really have the desire to overcome that anxiety, you can actually start to just take small steps towards it, and make sure you have some support, like someone knows what you're doing. But if let's say you're scared of being in a crowded room, you can start by maybe going into an elevator that has another person in it or whatever, and then work your way up to a room that has 3 or 4 people in it, and just kind of keep systematically working your way up. And all the while, like, telling yourself you're okay and having your support system there with you. Hopefully it'll be a therapist, if not a friend or loved one.
And, we were talking in the Facebook Live about what the brain does and why there's like these physiological responses in the body. And so what happens with anxiety is that your brain is taking the signals around you and interpreting that to be that there's an immediate threat. There's a tiger in the room that you need to be aware of and run away from. And so your body is now flooded with these hormones to make it possible for you to run away, right? Or to fight, or to freeze,
right?
Or to to play dead, right? To shut down.
Faint.
And so faint, yeah. And so you want to hear a story about me fainting?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear a story about me fainting?
Yeah, we do.
Oh my gosh. There are so many stories about me fainting, but I'll pick one. So I went with my dad. I went with my dad to the hospital. And I don't like hospitals. I don't like the smell. It makes me feel like oozy just even being in the hospital. My dad and I have the same thing. Like, we both feel oozy. He says oozy. Feels oozy. Feel oozy in the hospital. So we go to the hospital. I'm with him, and he had to get something checked or something. And he was talking to the doctor, and I was sitting on the chair in the room. And he was talking about blood and how something was bleeding, and he kept saying blood, and then he showed him the scar, and then there was blood, and then he said blood, and so many times I heard the word blood. Suddenly I'm like, ooh, and fainted right there in the hospital.
No.
Now, the wing...
you were in the hospital.
Well, here's the thing, though. The doctor in the room was like, we got to take her to emergency.
Oh.
So I was in like another wing, and then there's like the hospital, like the actual hospital. And so they got an ambulance. I'm not even kidding you. There was an ambulance. They put me in the ambulance and they drove me around to the other wing. My family, my dad and my mom and everyone walked over. They got there before we did. And then I had to pay $300 for the ambulance.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's in Canada? You have to pay that much for
I know.
ambulance?
Because, you have to pay for ambulance unless you have like extended health insurance.
Whoa. There wasn't a nurse that could have just like seen you wherever you were?
There's a liability issue for the hospital. I know. But, however, back to the story about fainting. So I fainted, and I have this thing about blood. Like, when I see blood, it like activates my anxiety, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, and I get really worried, and my heart starts racing, and I get like fainty, and like I can't see properly, and I faint. And so that's happened, and my family will tell you that happens like on a regular basis.
Wow.
But it doesn't happen when my kids have blood. And then I'm like mama bear, like I get that, I can handle that. But anybody else's blood, I can't handle it.
So I wonder what's the difference then. It must be your own perception of your kids bleeding
Control.
because
it's
you
about
feel
control.
like you can help them because you're the mom.
Yeah, I'm the mom.
But when it's other people, you're like, oh hell no.
I'm like, not me. Somebody else deal with that. All that blood. Even just hearing the word blood too much.
I know. Stop talking about it.
Oh no, have we put you into an anxiety attack with all that talk?
Oh, well, because I broke my nail last night and there was blood everywhere and I got really woozy and nauseous and dizzy and my parents had to take care of me. I was like, help!
Yeah, and I wonder, right? I wonder about the biology of that and the adaptiveness of that. That why, like, does it make evolutionary sense to say, if somebody's bleeding, there's probably a problem over there, let's get away from that problem. Unless it's your child, then you want to protect your gene pool, so you go and help the person.
Yeah, that's really weird.
I wonder.
Different topic for another day.
Another day, altruism. The science of altruism, helping other people when there's nothing in it for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So, back to anxiety. Yeah, I think we were talking before about that feeling of control, right? That's what it is. Mm-hmm. When we feel that we don't have control over a situation, or we feel like we're going to be taken for a ride or something like that, it causes anxiety because it's like a warning sign. Like you were saying, there's a tiger in the room. It's a warning sign to get the hell out of that situation. Mm-hmm. Don't let yourself ever feel that way again. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times anxiety does actually result from things that have happened a long time ago that you might not even remember or think too much about, right? I don't like to talk too much about the past, but I know it does have its place.
I love talking about the past.
Syra has showed me that it does have its place. You can pretty much blame everything on your parents. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, and the thing about the past, right, is that it only exists in your mind, right? It only exists when you're thinking about it. But unfortunately, sometimes we're thinking about it unconsciously, right? It's not like we're consciously thinking about the past, but there's other stories from our past that play out, and there's scenarios. And, you know, in the first 5 years of our life, we lock in certain truths, and we say, this is the truth. When this happens, this happens. That's the truth. And your brain is just set that way. And then for the rest of your life, you're kind of replaying those same old stories and over and over and over and over and over, unless you deliberately change those original settings.
And that's because we like predictability, right?
Yeah.
Like we like that, again, control. We like to feel like we know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. If this happens, that happens. And if that's locked in from the past, that's going to keep going until you consciously decide right now to change it. So I don't even think that you need... Well, we're going to probably disagree with this, but I don't think that you need to go into the past to figure out what that is. I think you need to see how it's affecting you right now and see what is it that you want to change about that and start working on those beliefs. Because it could help to maybe figure out why you have those beliefs, but I don't think it's a necessity. I think that the most important part is that you recognize that you do have certain beliefs, and then you can start to change them.
Yeah, so I totally disagree
completely.
And this comes from our training, right? We come from different backgrounds and different lenses in psychology, and so in my training, it's like you actually need the root cause, because when you unearth that root cause, it can't continue to feed the tree, right? It's like you don't just cut off branches; you actually unroot the whole tree from the bottom. And so it's not about spending your whole time and your whole life talking about the story in the past, because there are therapists that do that and they find value in that. And my approach is more like you identify it. There's one story or one event probably that set a certain pattern of thinking. We can get there, we can identify it, and we can say, well, that was a mistake. The way you interpreted that was actually a mistake because you thought you were in control, rather than, this is just an unfolding in the right path for your life. And this is actually going to make you the kind of person that you need to be.
So I agree. You do need to take ownership of that. Like I think that if you have certain things in your life that you're not happy with and they're causing you a lot of anxiety, to take ownership of the fact that you want to change that, rather than just thinking, oh, well, I am this way because of whatever happened in the past and I just have to deal with it. No, it's not set in stone.
Right.
Just because you have always felt anxiety about a certain thing does not mean you always have to feel anxiety about that certain thing.
Right.
But you do need to take ownership and decide right now that you're going to do something about it.
Right.
And what that could be, that small thing that you can do, is just like we were talking about self-talk, just telling yourself, I'm okay, and preparing yourself before you get to that situation that you're okay, building up your strength so that you feel confident to tackle that situation. And even if the worst case happens, you're okay. Like you can even just repeat that to yourself. I'm okay. I'm great. Like work your way up. I'm fantastic. But start with just, I'm okay.
Right.
You're okay.
And whatever you do say to yourself, it has to be something that you actually believe.
Yeah.
So if you're saying I'm fantastic and you don't feel that way, it's not really going to change your mind. Yeah, start lower. Like, I'm alive.
Yeah.
Like, you can start with that.
I'm a survivor. I will survive.
Yeah. I've made it this far. I'm trying my best. Those
Yeah.
types of things, right? And
Yeah.
slowly you get to a different place.
Yeah, totally.
So whether you go into your past or you don't, it's not as important as what you're choosing today and what you're choosing to now do with the life that you're building rather than the life that you had in the past.
Yeah. And so if you're noticing that anxiety is a big part of your life, or even if it affects you in any kind of way and you don't want to be affected by it anymore, then take that first step and really reach out. Reach out to a friend, to a loved one, to a counselor, a therapist. Reach out to someone who can help you, because you would be surprised at who feels anxiety. A lot of people feel anxiety. A lot of people worry. I would say most people worry, and they have that problem until they tackle it.
And the thing about worrying is it's not very productive.
No, it's not productive at all.
Like, what does worrying get you?
I can't think of anything.
Maybe a migraine.
Yeah, it'll get you a migraine for sure.
Maybe health conditions.
Yeah.
Like struggling health. Maybe broken relationships. I don't think you want any of those things.
No.
So worry doesn't really get you anything that you want.
No. Worry, I think sometimes we can get kind of addicted to it. Like it becomes like this type of thing that almost gets you out of situations. Like you don't have to go through certain things because you're worried, right? So you don't have to face your everyday life because you're so busy being worried that you're not really being present, right? And that being present can also, I think when you're present, you're never anxious, because anxiety is it's thinking about the future, and it's also relating to the past.
Right.
It's not in the moment. If you really think about this present moment, you have nothing to be anxious about.
And even in the middle of an anxiety attack, if you can be present to what's happening in your body and know that it's going to pass, because it's not going to last for an hour. Your physiology cannot handle that. It won't last for more than 3 or 4 minutes. It will feel like you're going to die sometimes, but you're not going to die. Yeah. Actions can kill you, but emotions cannot. Yeah. Right? Even though it feels really bad. And so if you can, even in the midst of a panic attack or an anxiety attack, if you can stay present to what's happening and speak it, I'm having a panic attack, I'm having an anxiety attack, to some other human being around you, you'll get through it. Yeah. You'll get through it. And the next time will be easier because you'll know that you can get through it.
Yeah. And then what is important then is not to dwell on the panic attack.
Right.
Because a lot of times the fear of that panic attack happening again is what causes more anxiety. Right?
So it's this vicious circle.
Yeah. So you want to really then focus on your strength and focus on being present and focus on if it's something about the past that's causing you to worry or have anxiety, then forgiveness becomes important, right? Because there's obviously something that you haven't forgiven. Right. And so giving that thing less space, giving it less ownership of you, less authority can help. And eventually, once you've forgiven, then you can forget and really move past
And the past could be as early as last week.
Yeah, I know.
3 days ago. That's still the past, people.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
If it's not happening right this second, like, don't let it ruin this present moment right now.
Right.
Which is
easy to say and hard to do. Yeah, we both know
we
how
talk
hard
about
that
this
is.
all the time.
Oh my gosh, so hard.
And we tell each other, like, just let it go. And it's like, I don't want to let it go. It just happened.
It just happened like yesterday. Like, that's the past, my darling.
And sometimes it's like, it just happened like 10 years ago, but still. Yeah, gotta move on.
Let's move on. Even a year. Like, imagine spending a whole year thinking about something that's no longer bringing you joy.
Yeah.
That's a waste.
But the other thing also is thinking about the future, because the future can cause a lot of anxiety. But what you need to do really is, this is super effective, is think about the future in terms of the best case scenario rather than thinking about the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. Like, be hopeful and imagine what that future is going to be like when things are great, rather than thinking, oh, in the future, this could happen. I could lose my job. I could, get divorced. This could happen. I could be alone. I could, whatever, wherever you go, don't go there anymore because you don't need to. It's not happening right now. If you start thinking about your future in terms of what could really happen that would be positive, you'll start actually moving your life in that direction. It becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Otherwise, you're that lady with the daughter who's not doing her homework and now ending up as a single mom, right? Otherwise, you're creating that in your own mind.
Yeah, and oftentimes, what you think about, you bring about. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking about the future and you're anxious and you're putting all of these horrible things onto it, you're also drawing those things towards you, not to make you more anxious, but you got
not to make you more anxious, but you got to kind of own, to kind of think about what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
Think about what you're thinking
about.
Think
about what you're thinking about.
That should be your tagline. Think about what you're thinking about, because it does have an impact.
It really does.
And it affects how you behave then in the world, right?
If you're expecting your life to go well, you will notice more opportunities. You will take more risks. You'll be braver, right? Because you're expecting things to work out. If you're expecting everything to go to crap, you are just going to shut yourself in. And that's what anxiety does. It shuts us in.
And then things often do go crappy because you're not actually open. You're not even really engaging in your life. Exactly. You're just like staying safe and miserable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
those are our thoughts. Today's your day to give anxiety the boot.
Yes. And we've all had that experience with anxiety. We continue to have experiences with anxiety, but it only gets better and better once you recognize what it is and start taking those steps. They don't have to be huge. They can be small steps. Great.
So those are our thoughts for today.
We hope it's been helpful. If it has, please share.
Especially with people in your life who live with anxiety, who have, that worrisomeness as part of who they are, or actually live with panic attacks and anxiety attacks. Just please pass this along to them.
Yeah. And reach out to us if you want additional support. As well, comment, like, subscribe to our channel.
Ask us questions. Give us topics that you want us to talk about. Because, clearly, we'll talk about anything.
And yeah, we'll see you next Thursday for Facebook Live and next Friday for our next episode.
Today's your day.
Bye.
Bye.